Hello and welcome. This is the first installation of what is going to be an ongoing Qwest dev vlog. So basically just a series of videos, ideally every week or every couple of weeks, just giving you updates on the state of the application as we attempt to build the next generation of knowledge base and knowledge management systems. So for those of you that don't know, we're working on a new form of knowledge base called Qwest, which semantically indexes your notes and understands the meaning of them to build some really cool features based on that. At least we think they're cool, and I'm going to give you a bit of a tour of the app today, and then you can decide for yourself if you think they're cool as well. So, the first thing I'm going to do is just go home using our new Spotlight search, which we recently added. And this is what you see when you first log in. Now, this is going to be an ongoing updating screen. We have some plans, some pretty good plans to make the UI look better for this entry point to the application. But right now, it's really just, here are all of the things that you can currently do. Early stages, alpha stages, With that said, you can do a decent amount from here. It gives you your keyboard shortcuts, so the dashboard view, which is where we're currently at, is Command plus Shift plus H for now. Adding an idea is Command plus Shift plus A, which might be changing soon, given some conflicts that we've identified. Finding all ideas is Command plus Shift plus B, etc., etc. And with that said, what this kind of comes down to is the ability to create an immersive experience where you can kind of learn these different shortcuts over time and become a much more powerful user and just kind of navigate around as quickly as possible. So that's what we're trying to achieve sort of in these early stages, is just building a really strong foundation, a combination of keyboard shortcuts and Spotlight search that works really well to where you can essentially build a really solid set of habits and move around the app really quickly and do the things that you actually want to do. So with that said, if I open up the sidebars here with some of those shortcuts, then you can see over here on the left, you have your recent ideas, and then over here on the right, your search bar is available. Now, the nice thing about what we're doing here in Qwest, and one of our biggest value propositions, is that all of the searches are semantic in nature, as well as FTS. We definitely support FTS because we see the value of that, but you can do things like vehicle information, for example, and we're just live firing some stuff here, so we'll see if it works. As you can see, this found Honda info, Tundra info, just some stuff about the different car notes that I've taken, that I've imported over from my Obsidian knowledge base. So all of these notes in this particular case are from my Obsidian knowledge base. So all this stuff is stuff that I'm importing over directly using the import feature available in settings. If I go to settings and then I go to imports and then I go to folder and then choose location, I can go in here and I can choose a particular location, which will give me some information and a view where I can select a folder and upload it. So with that said, if you see these ideas over here, I'll just go over to the Qwest dev vlog, and when you go to a particular idea, this is what it looks like. You have a very cluttered left sidebar that we're working on cleaning up, and then you have a right sidebar where you have, all of these ideas that you can sort of search for. So I have my Qwest dev vlog 1. Now, already off the bat, we have 2 different ideas that are showing up here, and I didn't even do anything. Once I added this devlog, I didn't do anything to make these show up. The system simply understands that these are the most related notes to the current one and pops them up as related as such. So for example, my Qwest to do, which has information about things that I still need to do, and then my editor playground, which is what I was using to test a lot of the editor functionality. Over here, this content is most related in the application to Qwest to do, because Qwest to do looks like this, and devlog1 looks like this, and they have similar content and similar titles, so they kind of line up. Qwest Editor Playground, on the other hand, looks like this, which is just a big mess, but it does work. So yeah, if I go back to devlog1 through that similar ideas thing, then you can see that those exist as such. It also will generate content overviews for you. So for example, over here, you can see all of the different things that it generates for you. It'll always generate an overview and then a brief summary. So overview, this content discusses the current functionalities and future plans. Brief summary, this content outlines the working features and the roadmap for future development. And then key points, it gives key points based on the stuff, and then highlights are direct excerpts from the content. So those are nice, and you can delete that or refresh it if need be. But then it pulls that that overview and uses that as the content overview, which is what you then see over here. For example, when you hover over these two ideas, you're seeing the content overview for these two ideas as well. So it makes it really nice to be able to just have that automatic summary, at least in my experience. I like to be able to just see what is this, like give me an overview of what I'm looking at right here, not necessarily a clip from it, although usually I can get a lot of context from just having like a clip from the particular thing. Having something like these overviews is actually really nice from a building of the UI standpoint for making things a little bit more intuitive. Anyway, we have this ideas you connected section as well, which I can connect things directly. We're working on making this drag and drop, but right now it's being a little finicky. That's fine though. So if I hit connect here, then refresh, looks like there was a little bit of a bug there. Then you can see the Qwest to do is actually showing up right here in the ideas you've connected section. Now, that's not the only way that you can connect ideas. You can actually connect ideas explicitly as well. So I'll look up Qwest, and then it'll bring up other stuff. These are all of my local notes on Qwest. There actually aren't a lot, so let me find something different. Let's find, let's see. Do I have anything in particular? Do I have anything on design? It doesn't look like I have anything interesting on design. Let's look through, maybe let's just do programming, because this will come up as far as programming goes. Hacking roadmap, OCaml is awesome. Abstraction, you know what? Maybe abstraction will come in handy when I'm thinking about these. So I'll come over here and I'll drag this idea over to the connected area. And then when I drop that, it'll show up here and it is now connected. We also have a concept of tags. Tags are a fairly straightforward concept if you're familiar with knowledge base management. That said, we are working on kind of figuring out how we want to do tags a little bit differently from existing systems. And that can take place in a multitude of ways. But one of the main ways is that we're kind of thinking that tags will be a way to constrain your system and are going to be a very intentionally defined thing at a sort of top level. While you're using Qwest, the idea is that you're in the driver's seat as far as how you design and architect your knowledge base so that it grows over time how you want. With that said, tags will work as a way to collect different ideas into certain organization systems through topics or however you want to use your tags. And so those are going to actually be defined as such at the top level. Now, before we made that decision, we had an auto generate new tags feature that added a bunch of tags here for me. But as you can see, a lot of these are redundant. For example, we have OCaml here, but then we also have programming. And where OCaml might be a useful tag to have, and I'm not saying that it's not, for my particular use case, all of my OCaml things can probably just be grouped under programming, because we'll have a similar concept, not necessarily similar, but another organizational concept called rabbit holes, which are going to be another organizational concept where something like OCaml would fit better than a tag. Tags are supposed to be a little bit more broad and topical, although you can use them however you want. We're not going to place strict limitations on that. The idea would be that maybe for something like an OCaml deep dive or just something about how OCaml works as a programming language, I would use a rabbit hole, and then I would group all of my ideas that way, and then they would also all have the programming tag applied so that I can do for like more constrained searches, etc. So that's sort of the idea there. With tags, if I go to this particular tag, OCaml, then you can see that I have all of these different things, all of these different OCaml related ideas here. Where if I were to, actually hold on, if I were to remove this tag, for example, and then we'll just remove that one as well and that one, and then if I went back over here to this sidebar, it'll actually suggest you different ideas that might be related to this tag. So if you go to your tag view and then you go to your suggested ideas, then it'll tell you the most related ideas in your knowledge base to the combination of the title and the description of your tag. So your description is actually semantically relevant and will help you generate these suggested ideas. Of course, over here on the right, if you want, you can actually create, you can just search for whatever you want, and then you can drag these in accordingly. Like, for example, maybe something very related to programming is something to do with beef. Maybe I want a mushroom sauce for whatever reason in my OCaml tag. I can just drag that over and add it in there, and it's no problem. It's here now. I am going to remove that. But then for all of these, you can just apply the tag because these are all related, and then this tag is actually useful in that sense. And we can see this sort of visualized in the graph view, where if I open up the graph view, which is a little bit messy at the moment, but we're working on that, then I can see all of my tags here. For example, I have Christianity here, which has all of these different notes related to it. And then I have theology, which this kind of goes to show that there might be a little bit of a redundancy between some of your tags. And I fell into this particular trap when I was using Obsidian, is I would create tags that were just like slightly different from each other, and then I would end up with a ton of tags, and I never used any of them very many times. With that said, we will be working to allow users to do whatever they would like with their knowledge base and be incredibly flexible, while also having a decent amount of constraints to help them build a knowledge base in a really powerful way. So as you can see, these different tags are applied to all of these different nodes and group them together and cluster them together. Now, my current knowledge base, this is my local instance of this application, which is just kind of for testing and local development, which is very, very ugly compared to like my personal like actual build. But basically, you can see how as I've added tags in here, it started to constrain my graph a little bit more, or a constellation we're calling it, which makes it look a lot nicer. But yeah, so this is the graph view. This is the constellation view, where you can see all of your nodes just in this big giant blob. And you can see the actual structure of your knowledge base built out. Now, our hope with this graph view is that it's not just for decoration. And that's not to say that, for example, Obsidian's graph view is just for decoration, but in our experience at least, it oftentimes becomes mostly about decoration as opposed to actually building something truly useful. So it can be really useful for representation. But what we're trying to do here is we're trying to build an interface that you can use as a way to actually understand your knowledge base at a high level. So let's rerun the search for beef and let's see what pops up. All of these results, it found 50 different results, and all of these results are automatically filtered so that you can see semantically where all of these results are mapped on your graph. So for example, scratch meals, this particular daily note, which for some reason has is related to beef. Maybe I had to get These daily notes actually might have had something to do with grocery lists, for example. Sliders, tri-tip roast, another daily note. Sliders again, maybe that's different than this one. And these particular, all of these notes are related to your query, and it allows you to do this sort of exploration of these. Now, this is, like I said, going to get a lot more powerful over time. As we refine the constellation view, it will be useful for much more than just visualization. However, for now, it can be used for navigation and just kind of looking around and having a bird's eye view of how your knowledge base is being built out. The way that we're thinking about building out a knowledge base in this fashion is that the way that you are doing it is less a hierarchical organizational structure, like something like Obsidian or Notion or Slab or all of these other PKM software that are very file tree based. But it's also not necessarily like just some flat architecture where every note is just another note in your big giant list of notes, like something like maybe Google Keep. Rather, your knowledge base is entirely a graph. When you're building out your knowledge base, you don't really have to think about the organization. The knowledge base is entirely self-organizing, which is why when you go to something like, deli wraps over here, and then you go over to the side, you can see the most similar notes to your current note. For example, it looks like I might even have a duplicate of deli wraps here. That's useful to know. Now I can come over here and delete this idea. And then if I want to go back to deli wraps, well, this deli wraps isn't going to exist, so that was a little redundant, but this one will. And if I rerun this search, then, that'll reflect accordingly. But now you can see, like, carne asada, and maybe I have two duplicates of this as well, actually. It looks like I do. Carne asada is the most related to deli wraps, according to Qwest. But you can also create these connections explicitly over time, and then those will be what show up in your graph. Or over here on the left, as you can see, it will suggest to you the tags that you already have. So when I go to the food tag, it will suggest to me all of the ideas that might be related to food. But when I go to a specific tag that might be related to that, or when I go to a specific idea that might have a related tag, then it will suggest it in the opposite order as well. So basically, tags are entirely self-organizing in this fashion. You have to explicitly create the connection, but once I do create this connection, now it exists. Now this has a tag applied, and I didn't really have to think about anything except for, yes, actually, that is a good idea. So these are the kinds of features that we're building here in Qwest, is just everything that really sucks to do manually in a traditional personal knowledge base management system. By default, those will all just be really easy to do because of the underlying structure. But that's not the only thing that Qwest is capable of doing. And this is where it gets to one of my favorite features, which is Spyglass. So Spyglass is a way to interact with your knowledge base, not necessarily as just a search where you try to find the most relevant notes to your particular query, but actually as a way to get answers. Spyglass is an answer engine for your notes. So what are some of my recipes which I can make on a barbecue and use beef? So this is a rather complex query compared to, just saying the word beef. And this will actually generate an overview for you based on the results of your search. So as you can see, it found and analyzed 39 results in 4.9 seconds. And in that time, we have the 2 carne asada results, which for some reason there are 2 of them, with citations referenced directly over here in the sources section, and then an overview generated based on those. So based on the results, here are some recipes using beef that can be made on a barbecue. Carne asada, tri-tip roast, beef sliders. All of these different things can be made on a barbecue and use beef. And so not only did it understand my query and then generate these different results, but it also references them directly and doesn't embellish and uses its sources that it finds organically through that initial search in order to create an accurate and based in your notes specifically overview. So for example, it says beef sliders, a food item. Now that is a direct result of my beef sliders note not having that much information in it. It would seem that, for example, I just have a YouTube URL here for this. So I don't really provide the Spyglass with a lot of information about what beef sliders actually are. And even though it could tap into its wide language model latent space and find information about beef sliders and then hallucinate that into here, it knows that it's supposed to go based on the sources, and my sources don't give it that much information about beef sliders, so it's just going to say it's a food item. So this is where those really cool features come in, where it's not just a matter of making the things that you've tried to do in the past, like maintain tags or maintain a solid organization or easily navigate around your knowledge base much easier and more intuitive by adding this semantic layer, but it's also about building on top of it in order to create features that would be very difficult to replicate in a traditional knowledge base application. And that's not to say that they couldn't be, but this is an easy feature relatively because of how we're doing this. And these are the kinds of things that we have in the roadmap. So search is going to get better. Spyglass is going to get better. Notes editing is going to get better. Connections are going to get better. The graph view is going to get better. Everything is in its early stages at the moment. With that said, we have so many things that we already want to make better about it. But the biggest thing that we want to make better about it is have more people using it and giving us feedback so that we can all build it together. Anybody who has ideas around this area or is interested in this sort of thing, to sign up for the waitlist that'll be linked below. We have this big feedback button right here where you can give us all of your thoughts, and we encourage it highly. So I'm going to do another thing, which is heavy mode. Now, this is a new version. This is a highly computationally expensive version of the graph where it will actually compute all of your notes and find their most related connections. And so it takes a while to actually load this, which is why it's not the default. But with heavy mode enabled, you can actually see these clusters build themselves out. Here we go. So I'm going to open this up. Oh my goodness. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to close these. So as you can see, it's a little crazy. This is not, we're sort of abusing the browser here, but you can see all of these connections between all of these different ideas, which is just so fun and so interesting. And this heavy mode right now, it's very chaotic, and we will happily admit that we have so many areas for improvement. Because, like, look at how difficult it is to actually read all of this, but also look at how interesting it is that Qwest to do, Qwest devlog, abstraction, and things like performance profiling, comparing languages, Hebrew, and then like this poem I wrote, and then all of these different things just find themselves close to each other. A lot of these aren't actually useful. Like, a lot of these are just the result of these different weights being pulled in different directions. But a lot of these are actually really useful. Like all of these different creeds being grouped together, and then this being connected to Christianity, or something like psychology or permaculture being connected to all of these ideas like hugelkultur mounds, which are connected to carnivores, and then, all of these different things. you can see how something like this is basically what Qwest is capable of understanding, is the connections between all of these different ideas at a very deep level and a very broad level. But we're really looking to build something that truly solves a lot of, if not all of the problems that people have with their personal knowledge management. And we'd love your help to do it. So if you're interested in this kind of thing, check out that waitlist I mentioned linked below, and leave some feedback down below as well. So thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day or night or afternoon or morning or whatever time of day it is for you. And goodbye.